Welcome everybody to In the Buff.
You are blowing out my headphones, Chris.
You are getting more and more into it every time. Are you eating the microphone?
No. Should I take two? Take two. We'll go for take two. Welcome everybody to In the Buff. Today we've got your host Chris and his cohorts here in Dabomination. We've got Scott, John, and Kyle.
You should never go off the beaten path.
Yeah, that one sounds like you're some radio telethon person.
I didn't dislike it.
Steve the Slick or something.
I was okay with it until he said Dabomination.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. I don't know know why I am that.
I was trying to say debauchery. And then I did.
You didn't.
I couldn't remember the words halfway.
All right.
Through.
Well, we're only doing two because the last intro also was kind of meh at best.
Three?
So here's the thing. We're Cody-less today, but it's all right because we already got a replacement, arguably better in every single way. His older brother, Kyle.
Better. We're going with better. Okay.
In every single aspect.
When he said better, I thought he meant me.
Betty bought
but now
a
I'm
bit of
confused.
butter.
This man.
The butter was not bitter. It was better.
Oh my god. You can't drag in these stupid jokes that we were making before we hit the record button into the podcast.
Okay. Well.
Do we have comments today, Kyle?
No, we're skipping comments today.
We're skipping comments.
If I'd known, I would have had them up.
Kyle, you're dropping the fucking ball.
Well, no, he's better
you're
than
replacing
Cody.
Cody. Everything is worse now that Cody isn't here.
God. Yeah.
Wait, hold on. But we've been skipping comments to let them build up, so why are we dogging on them?
Get off my back.
1 second, I'll get them.
Shapes they have angles in shapes typically.
Yes.
If you have two lines and they're going in directions, if those lines ever were to intersect, what would happen at that intersection? Anybody?
A car wreck.
4 angles.
Kurt Angle?
Yeah.
4 angles. The circles don't have angles.
All right. I have the comments.
We've already
We're not
skipped
doing
them.
them, Kyle.
We're not doing the comments.
Did you not get
skipped
the
them.
memo?
Oh,
Kyle,
God.
Damn it.
you are on thin ice, buddy.
Listen,
It's one more
you make
outburst.
one more wrong move, I will call Cody and turn this ship around right now.
We have a new person commenting on one of our podcast episodes.
Wait,
That's-
who? What?
Close it! We're gonna deal with it next week.
God damn it. I'm gonna have to wait a week.
Oh.
Well,
oh
it's
dear.
Chris's corner. Here's a funny joke. Corners, more like...
Uh-huh.
Chris, what's your corner about today?
Well, you see, much like the corners of a shape, the world is said to have corners. And as a creative, you create worlds of your own. You almost do some building of sorts. A world build, if you will.
Corner? Dang near whittled her a boat out of a piece of wood.
Wow, he stretched that one. Chris, the effort does not go unnoticed, but your inability to keep me entertained is also very noticed.
You know, that's what I get in the street as well. People come up to me and be like, man, you should just cut that loose turd out. You know? It's stuck in your hair. You just need to shave it off.
Okay.
And I assume they're talking about Chris. I don't know what else they could be referring to. Maybe.
Well, it's definitely not you or... Wait, have you checked your hair recently?
Hold on, now I'm starting to think maybe I'm just covered in shit.
Okay, well,
And I don't know it.
Oof. That is a possibility. Do you know who told you this?
Multiple people on multiple occasions.
Wow.
But, that's not what we're here about today. How about you stop analyzing every little thing I say, okay? How about you stop analyzing the person I am?
Sure.
I'm allowed to live the life I want to live.
Sorry, Chris, you said something about world building?
Yes, world building. I've been thinking about world building a lot recently.
what have you been thinking about in regards to world building, Chris?
Well, like, I've been thinking, about world building and things. recently.
That's it. That's all he's thought about.
Incredible.
He's thought about the idea of
He
world
just
building.
repeated himself. You
just
asked
like-
him a question and he just said the same thing again.
I tried to set you up so hard right there, Chris.
I'm also practicing for what I try to run for office. So,
That was
No.
Oh,
Never
is this like your
answered
Joey B impression?
right.
Oh my god. Set this on
Oh,
fire.
man.
Fucking put it in the trash. Leave it on somebody's doorstep. Oh my god.
Took me
Oh,
a second to think who
Joey B.
was, which made me realize that's actually a pretty good Joey B impression because he probably also forgets who he is.
Man, Chris, you're doing great. Talk to me about world building, all right? What are your thoughts on world building?
Look, like, obviously all stories have a bit of world building in them, no matter how
Mm-hmm.
in depth they go. Like, not every story needs a Silmarillion written to explain everything about the world building.
I think we can disagree.
Oh?
I don't
Okay,
know.
here's
I don't-
discourse.
Hold on. I don't know if we've gotten to the debate part yet, Kyle. I think he's still segueing in.
Okay.
He's still segueing. Oh my god. Does it have enough battery? Oh my goodness.
This segue is taking the same trip
No.
my parents took to school.
You know what? This is actually
What a fucking zoomer joke.
it's not snowing at all.
Incredible.
What this does bring up a lot. Everything has world building, right? If you think about it, if it's consumable media, so like let's take the Energizer Bunny, right? World building. It's normal world, so it's like urban fantasy, but there's this little tiny bunny that just magically travels the world.
I've been told he keeps going.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and
The dead air. The dead air. Oh my god.
We are 8 minutes.
but like there are examples of world building that I think are very fascinating, and I was hoping that you guys too would have examples that you would like to bring to the table. I personally loved Atla as a child.
You're gonna have to help me out.
Get,
Teenage
Avatar:
years.
The Last Airbender.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
It took me a minute there too, Chris. Nobody uses
Hey.
that.
Only us super fans say Atla.
Resume. Okay, Chris. Before we start getting into like examples, of like stuff we'd like, you mentioned the Silmarillion. Not everything has to be so in depth or whatever. I'm
Help me
curious
out
about
here.
where your spectrum lies. Where would you prefer on like in depth and loose? Where would it be? And can you give me an example of what your perfect?
Chris, before you answer that, somebody help me out and tell me what a Silmarillion is.
That's like the lore to pre Lord of the Rings. That's like why the rings were made and all that shit.
It's
Okay, so this is world history kind of thing.
yeah.
Sort of.
It's like the history that goes into the Lord of the Rings.
Because if you just take the Lord of the Rings as it is, you don't really know anything about the elves. The Silmarillion tells you about the elves.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Silmarillion goes into explaining why the world is the way it is,
Yeah.
where everything comes from. Like, it goes on to explain shit like why fucking Gollum falls into the lava in Mount Doom.
Here's, I don't know if this is a hot take. I do like Tolkien. Don't get me wrong. I love Tolkien. It does, the Silmarillion, that tome does worse than what the beginning, literally 15 seconds of narration does at the movies. It is worse than the beginning 15 seconds.
Because I felt like that's essentially what the beginning of those movies did.
Yeah.
Was explain, hey, this is the world that you're walking into right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a matter of like condensing and removing parts of the media that you are translating from a different subset to something that would be enjoyable. Which
Okay. And Chris, you said, where do you stand on the syllabus?
Silmarillion.
So, like,
Silmarillion's a really big number.
when I first heard this term, I thought, the Silmarillion fits into this category. I think Kyle fiction is too much
yeah.
world building.
That's a good
I agree.
callback.
I agree.
So, like,
I didn't understand that.
we were talking about how, like, in 40K, everything is world built to the atom, right? So, like, you can find diagrams of space marines and, like, all of the organs that are replaced and all the chemicals that are pumped into them all have names and inventors and, like, their histories. I don't need to know all that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Well, give me an
I don't
example
think
of,
anyone
like,
does.
just so I can better visualize it. What's your perfect world build? Like,
Where does
what
this
you-
continuum sit? And, like, what's the breadth
Yeah,
of
yeah.
this continuum? And where is perfect?
for you?
I like it. So I like subtle things,
Mhm.
right? That you don't have to know, like, the stuff about them.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you a second. Everybody, get something in your mind. Let's ask everybody this.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
get an answer in your mind.
yeah.
Continue, please.
I like subtle things that, like, you don't need to explore deeper, but it might pique that interest. Like, oh, that's interesting. So, like, for example, there are spells in D&D that have names attached to them.
Mhm.
Like, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, or...
Jim's
Luke's-
magic missile.
Melf's
Resilient,
acid
whatever the hell
arrow.
it's called.
yeah.
MILF?
Melf.
Oh.
And
I
that's
actually know the name behind that
because
one.
that those spells were discovered in living memory, and so we know the wizards that learned how to do those spells
Right.
first. And then, like, of course there are lore books attached to D&D that, like,
Like Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes and things
Yeah.
like that.
yeah, that can go into their stories of, like, who these great wizards were. But we don't need that. It's just like, here's some little extra fluff for you. And it doesn't have to just be, like, all up in your face about it. It's
So
very subtle.
you're a fan of the... Well, now I'm getting conflicting messages here. You were saying that you don't want it, like, stuff that isn't unnecessary, like all the down to the atom bullshit, but...
No, but sure, Tasha has a story, right? And somewhere I can find her story. But that story isn't
I don't even know
going
if it's
to
her.
It is. Because I know some of Tasha's story. Because I like Tasha. But I'm not going to get the backstory to her parents or to, like, everyone in the town that they're in. I don't have to. George Lucas does this, where, like, every single person you see on screen, no matter who they are, they're gonna have a name.
No, man. Everybody likes to blame George. It's everybody else who just liked how, like,
Yeah.
iconic everything was. I'm not saying George is a saint, but do you really think George Lucas had, like, a story in his head for fucking Boba Fett? No. He saw Boba Fett and he's like, oh, let's make, like, a cool guy with a fucking awesome helmet. And then he gets beaten and killed by a blind man. But, oh, he's not dead. He didn't make him not dead. Regardless, I don't know why it's turned into me defending George Lucas.
But the Star Wars universe in general has taken that route.
Yeah.
Where I don't think it was like that when they were first making the movies.
Mm-hmm.
But then we had 20 years of just all this freedom to write whatever books we wanted to.
Yeah.
And then that all got told to be no longer canon.
Yeah, thanks,
And
Kathy.
so it all got reversed, and all of that world building got reversed.
Regardless, so you like that kind of stuff that is just a little like the aperitif, or the what do you call it when you just like make a dish look pretty?
Oh,
A commercial.
no, it's got
The presentation.
no. They're garnish.
Garnish. It's like the little garnish on top of a world that can exist without it.
Yeah.
I'm into that.
While, like 40K feels like it's just like drowning everything in mustard.
I'm not gonna say drowning everything in mustard. I'm gonna say it's drowning everything in every sort of condiment.
That is a more accurate depiction.
I feel
yes.
like you have ordered everything on the menu and have put all the condiments on it.
And then you put it in a blender.
I was just say you
It's
put
what
it in a
happened.
blender. Yep.
I want a
And you
And then you
drink it
pour
like a
that over a
smoothie.
steak.
I want a curated experience, not a buffet.
That's that's really good.
Why-
I like that.
That is
So
a
then-
pretty good. That's a pretty good analogy. Yeah.
Okay, but then let's back up, Chris. I think you love games like Skyrim, don't you?
Yeah.
So
Now, given Skyrim will let you explore the world in the route that you want to explore it.
Mm-hmm. Well, like Skyrim, for example, right? I don't know every single guard's name. They're just called guard. And in fact, they don't have a life outside of being a guard to you.
interestingly enough, I know the code behind it. There is just a room underneath the world where every NPC you can't see just goes to exist.
I mean, that's just goddamn Bethesda being dog shit at doing
Yeah.
everything.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that they're like, I don't need to tell you like the whole family history of random guard number 3. They just need to beat you up if you break the law.
But what if, like, I'm playing D&D and I'm like, hey, what's your name? Guard number 3?
Yeah. Because, like, the most annoying and greatest thing a player can do is ask everybody their fucking names.
Yeah.
Right. But like,
Scott, if you do that into my incoming campaign,
Somebody needs to ask me first.
I
That's
will... You're right.
It's true.
Well...
and then my
never
character will treat random guards as if they are just AI. Who gives a shit? They're random peons.
Wow, that's not a very nice person thing to do.
Wow.
We're trying to deprogram her as we speak.
Okay. So,
Can we move on to somebody
Kyle?
else?
What are your
you
thoughts?
You guys already have dedicated an entirely new term of fiction just for what I like.
Yeah.
So
You want
me
all of
going
it.
into explanation is kind of pointless.
Like,
Kyle.
maybe we can bounce our perception of you off of you and see how you feel about it. Like, my perception
Okay.
of the kind of world building you enjoy is like, you like not necessarily what Chris is going on about with the down to the atom, not that
Right.
severe, but you really do like those specific
The nitty-gritty
I-
details.
nitty-gritty
Yes,
details.
I really do love just getting lost in the minutia of a world that showcases that someone is really thinking about how everything works.
A good example of this is, I remember you were talking to me about the weapon design for, was it Fallout?
Possibly, yeah.
Some game, and you were like, man, the shotgun they made in this game just doesn't make sense. And I'm like, I can't think of a thing that I give less of a shit about than if the shotgun makes sense in a game.
Maybe you just have a thing about shotguns, Kyle, because I even remember back in the day in fucking school, you would tell
maybe.
me why the Call of Duty shotguns were incorrect.
I don't remember that, but I believe
You
I would do that.
I remember you giving me a line like, oh yeah, that pump action that you get at like level 12, like, actually that has a much longer range than the game gives it credit for.
that's just
the game gives
shotguns
it
Oh, I
in
can
credit.
agree
video
with that.
games.
I can agree with that.
That's just shotguns in video games.
But like the thing is I'm just like, who fucking cares? It's a video game.
I can
Right.
imagine Kyle saying this exact thing. Past like 5 feet, it's like I'm spraying glitter at a guy.
When I imagine Kyle fiction, I imagine Kyle at a computer
What?
desk. Yep.
Pants down.
Streaming.
Headphones on.
Streaming.
Turgid.
He's probably on YouPorn.
reading hours worth of wiki content about a particular like sword used in whatever he's on, and he will start and finish that in like a month.
Okay.
Doing it consistently because the sword just has that much shit written about it.
Okay, you've gone a little too far off the deep end right there. But that was good right up until you started talking about one singular thing in any given aspect.
And I don't think that's bad necessarily. In fact, I honestly wish I felt that way about the things I like, where I would want to be fully immersed that hard into something. If I even could be. Honestly, I doubt that I could be, just because I have a hard time immersing myself in anything, especially if I don't really, really like it.
Mm-hmm. It's one of the there's a certain level of detail where it's just like you are just vamping at that stage.
Let's narrow it down for me, Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
Are you more interested in the societal details or like the mechanics of like machinery, or are you more interested in like racial features? Like take for 40K the instance of how orcs repopulate. Because I just remember when we talked about it, you were excited to tell me how they don't have penises. Instead, they have spores.
What the fuck are you talking about?
And you cut them open. And so that's how they repopulate, is like the spores get into the cuts of other people that they're fighting, and then they make little goblins or something, I don't fucking know. But whatever it is. I remember you were excited to tell me that point, and I don't know if you were excited to tell it to me because you thought it's something that I would find interesting, or if it's something that you're genuinely interested about.
So very close on the information there. It is just something I'm genuinely interested in general. There's very rarely ever going to be anything that is going to be something that is something I don't care about when you're doing world building like that. Except this is the one thing that I will just my eyes will glaze over if you start writing about, and that is history of your world if dates are involved.
Yeah, it's like
if you
I honestly
if you
feel
start
that way about modern history. Like if it just becomes either
Right.
name salad or dates, just date salad, I can't.
Right.
I
will
Interesting.
just turn off for that. Like, I will do exactly what Chris said, and is just be on a wiki for hours to months on end reading about information. I will skip the history section of every single article I ever read.
Weird.
Wow.
Okay.
That makes so much sense why our timeline's just out of fucking whack, bro.
Yes, it is. It makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
Wow.
Can I quickly go on a tangent?
Go ahead. It's your corner.
I was thinking about this. I realized how little world building I like. I dislike.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like League of Legends. In
Watch your fucking mouth.
in the early times
I will
was
cut you.
Hi, this is Summoners Rift. These are heroes.
Oh, yeah.
Here's like their name and like a little story about them. Go
Mhm.
play. go fight each other. That was it. That's all you had to go on.
That's when everyone's feet were giant triangles.
It was. It's nothing.
But that game, when it was first established, was not about lore. It was about getting a fan base. It was just trying to get it was trying to get on its feet.
Pretty much.
I'm going to
True.
push back on your point, Chris, in that I really don't think it needed a lore.
Yeah.
I don't play Fortnite, but the fact that Fortnite has lore pisses me the fuck off.
I think I agree with Scott there.
We look back to when we first started, when you guys introduced me to Halo 3, I did not give a fuck who Master Chief was.
Mr. Chef, actually.
I didn't care about any of that. I didn't care about the alien that you could play as, that you loved to play as, Kyle. But it was just, for me, we were just, thanks, Chris. But for me, we were just dudes shooting dudes. We were just playing a video game.
Just guys being dudes.
In Oblivion, a game that is all about, hey, this is your purpose, this is why you're here. Dog, the Emperor broke me out of jail, and I didn't need to ask another question. I didn't care. They said, go here. I said, okay, I'll follow a little marker on my map, and I'm going to jump and run while I do it so I can level those up. I didn't care what the lore was. But then, I think after the game had become established, after I started playing League, I thought there were cool little things. And I think something that I think what got you into the lore for League, Chris, is probably the small character interactions that they started adding.
Yeah, it did. Because certain characters had specific dialogue if they were with other characters, and I was like,
Heimerdinger is one of your favorite characters.
yeah.
Interestingly enough, sorry, this is going to be a call out against Chris. Sorry to put you on the spot here. One of my favorite things that I learned about Chris are his two favorite characters were Heimerdinger and Annie. Annie had an ult that summoned a bear that was AI controlled.
Oh,
Heimerdinger had 4 turrets that were also AI controlled.
There it is.
And Chris was like, dude, I do so good with these characters. And I'm like, yeah, you do.
Because you're not
You are
playing
so
the game.
good.
The computer
You're doing
sure
so
does do
great.
so much better than you do on those players.
Daddy Donger is the best. Okay.
I don't like that. Now that we got John talking, I nominate you to go
Heimerdinger?
next. What's your on the spectrum? Are you autistic or not? Where would you go on your world building spectrum? What's an example of that is for me right now?
So for me, I think there's 3 different major areas for me. There's a realistic world that you can create. When I say realistic, I mean everything that happens in your world makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You can understand and justify. There's logic in your world, so it's oh, well, it's okay. For Cody's world, for example, that he's made for D&D, he's upgraded the bag of holding to a bank of holding, and they made a business out of it. There's a world where I'm wow, that's really smart and justifiable. Okay. I'm surprised, D&D didn't just do something like this.
The person who discovered that magical technology was this is now my proprietary technology. I'm going to build a business out of this.
And then he went even further to be all right, well, Electrum or fucking whatever it is. You have to get a bank's note, and there has to be written proof.
It's like gun control.
Yeah. But that's where it starts to go too far into realism for me.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy playing in Cody's world. John would not have survived in that world because he doesn't understand a single bit of it. The moment that we start talking about legalities and stuff, I'm I'm out. I'm done. I can cast a fireball and blow up a whole fucking room. So I'm done. I don't care. You were limiting me from using my spells now.
I think I kind of agree in that sense where it's hard to come to terms with the fact that there are literal classes of people, which is to say there's a class that I can be that is more powerful than any magical item that you could charge me for. And I'm not regulated.
Yeah. It's hard, there has to be that balance to me. You can go that route, but the moment that you start ham fisting it, it's you're taking away from your players.
Let's even take Tybalt for an example, who isn't a magically inclined person. He has magic abilities thanks to the Rune Knight stuff. Like, being able to just incapacitate people or turn them on fire and bind them with fiery chains, that's hardcore. I shouldn't be allowed to just do that wantonly, but I do, and I can, because that's one of my capabilities, and nobody really knows I can do that.
Like, that's why I sort of felt like Aiden fit into Cody's world really well, because all of his magic is really subtle.
Yeah.
And outright, he's just a dude with a crossbow. Like, he fits into the mid-tier fantasy of the world, while still being able to keep to the realism that Cody has kind of set in place. But like, I like having a bit more freedom. I like having the, I guess Skyrim fits somewhat close to what I would go for, where there are repercussions for your actions, but at the end of the day, you're probably too strong for anybody to do a fucking thing about it. Like, you have multiple answers that'll give you multiple solutions. But I like the world kind of revolving around you.
That's kind of why
what I'm saying.
I talk about how in Skyrim, this is something I've said for years. In Skyrim, I feel like a water droplet on Teflon. I am not a part of the world. In fact, I am specifically apart from the world. That's how I feel all the time, because me learning magic, like it's something as simple as when I go to the College of Winterhold, I don't need to know magic. I need to know one spell to get through that one bitch, and then that's it. I can just be a warrior going through the entire magical quest, and then I'm the fucking archmage. I'm not a part of the world.
As for the lore building, because I realize I'm actually getting away from the idea of the question.
Yeah, I just got mad about Skyrim.
I was about to go on a massive tangent about Elder Scrolls deep lore.
So, when I'm building my world, I should also mention, to finish the thought that I had. God, this is all over the place.
Yeah.
I'll have fun editing this one. To finish the thought that I had, the perfect world for me would be a world that's mostly revolved around the players, but there's a clear-cut timeline. Things are allowed to happen when you're not there.
Yeah.
Now, for important story beats, I would make a little bit of an exception. But, like, I love when there is that clear pressure from the moment that we got out of the Astral Sea. It was, hey, we have a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
And Cody did what felt like in a good way that felt legitimate and felt logical to put us just hours before the end of the world. And it's like, it's go time. This is it.
I mean, for all we know, not to get too into the weeds, it has already happened. For all we know,
it could have.
We're about to walk into that room and the fucking snake god is going to be there.
That could be the case. It's hard to say. But, like, from where we were to where we're at now, all has, like, a logical, streamlined time sense to it. Mm-hmm. But it was all our actions that got us to where we were. Now, for my world building, I am kind of in the same place as Chris, where I don't need every little finite detail to be written in stone. When I'm creating my world, like, I will build about 50% of it. Like, it was literally like, it was, hey, here's what we want to do. I asked you guys, I'm like, the next campaign might be in the Underdark. It's whatever you guys want to do. You guys said, sure, let's do that. I didn't have a single bit of the Underdark fleshed out at the time. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to work on that. And I would get like a chunk of it done. And I would say like, okay, here is a very rough timeline of the most important things that happened in the history involving the Underworld. And then I'd be like, all right, these are the races you guys can play. You guys would start to flesh out your characters and say like, I want to be this, I want to be that, I want to be this. So I'd send you a little bit of information on them. Like, that's when I would create the information for them. I'd only really create as needed. until we know what characters you guys want to play. And then I would start to flesh out a little bit of history for each race. But I would never finite anything. At the end of the day, I'd leave it like 50%. And then as you guys are getting closer to the area that you're going to, is when I'll create more details for it. But I'm not going to create a name for every single person. I'm not going to create a family history for everybody. I'll create enough for them so that we can have what I feel like is natural conversations. And you guys can say like, oh, that's a person. It's not just a stat block. You know?
Sure.
Like, at the end of the day, I want them to feel like an NPC that you might give a shit about.
All right, so I'm gonna do what you guys did to me real quick and just bounce back what I heard you saying back to you, and you tell me if this is correct.
Wait, I didn't even get to go.
We're not done with John yet.
Well, it sounds like you're going to do it to all three of us is what it makes you sound like.
I will, but I'm like, we'll do it as we're talking about that person.
To do it to Chris.
From what I'm hearing from John is like, the only world building that needs to happen is one that is all the world building that is in direct support of the story. Like, there needs to be a story and a narrative happening, and the only thing that needs to exist in the world is the things that are going to interact around that, and the rest of the world doesn't matter.
Kinda. Like, I can tell you for my D&D world, there are 5 major continents. And you guys have been on a total of 2 of them. And in this campaign setting alone, you guys have only been on 1. You guys have only been on the continent of Theranon. Now, even in that aspect, very little has happened on there because everybody went to Barovia, and I used a module for it, but I fleshed out my world of Barovia. But, like, you look at the rest of the continent, it opened up the Shar, which was to the right, where all the animalistic races were. There's history with the bottom left of the continent, where there's a desert called the Red Expanse. Like, there's basic lore about all that, but I won't go into the full detail of it. Like, I'll have, like, leaders and important people and things like that, but I'll never go in and actually create the fully fledged towns until you guys decide you want to go there.
Right, and those are just like a very brief overview of someone who hasn't been there and isn't going there might theoretically know.
Exactly.
Like I said, in support of the story. It's something a character might know, having never actually experienced that, and just having heard the world around them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I like to add little bits of information that are like almost like hooks. Like, there might be a time where Scott makes a intelligence check to remember something, and he remembers seeing a similar looking individual out in the desert when he was going by it or something. I don't know.
Right. And I still feel like that's the same thing. It's like everything that you build, everything that you're looking for in your world building and in the world building you experience by other people should be in support of the story in some way. Everything else is stuff that can, like, exist, but it's not stuff that we need to think about. So, like, a sentence or two is all that's really ever going to be needed until someone's like, that's where the story should go.
Yeah, until the DLC comes out. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, actually saying that, the story is the most important part for me. So that main story, and I think there's a little bit of a strand that's different for every character in it. So, like, there's going to be different portions there's different aspects that are going to be messing with the story for each individual person, so that the story feels slightly tailored to each player for me. But that's what I care about the most, is I want, at the end of the day, for you guys to end the story and be like, man, that was awesome.
Incredible.
All right.
Can I go?
Scott. Yes, go, Scott.
So I can think of 3 top of my head examples of just world building that I enjoy. And there's a pretty broad spectrum in the 3 examples I can think of. First one is original trilogy, Star Wars, specifically 4 and 5.
Okay.
Like, pretty much all we know is there is an empire. It's a galactic conflict, so people can planet hop and go all over. There were Jedi, and there is.
We
a
don't even
rebellion.
know what those actually look like.
And I don't know what a Jedi was, other than Obi-Wan telling me, "Oh, I was a Jedi warrior once, so as your father was before you. He was killed by Darth Vader." Who's Darth Vader? Oh, that spooky guy in the helmet? Oh my god. That's what I need to know. I don't need to know about these motherfucking space whales and shit, okay? Because they don't exist.
There's space whales?
They don't. I'm not going to talk about
There's
it.
space
I'm not going
whales?
to talk about it, John. They don't exist. They aren't real. They didn't exist back then. They shouldn't exist now, but they do now thanks to Dave fucking Filoni. But here we are. Regardless, I'm comfortable with that. It's loosey-goosey. I don't need to know how this hyperspace works. I don't need to know how the lightsaber works. I don't even need to know how the Force works. You just tell me what Obi-Wan says. Oh, it binds us, surrounds us, penetrates us. That's all I need to know. It's mystical, hokey, spokey stuff. I don't know how it is. It helps you, and it's an ally, but not a weapon. If you use it as a weapon, that's a bad thing to do. You shouldn't do that. Treat it as an ally. Regardless, I like that. Another example is Mass Effect. I liked Mass Effect a whole lot because I understood intrinsically like the interpersonal relationships that the species had with one another. I understood where humans fit into all of that, and like I felt it. I felt that like Ralph was getting like the short end of the stick because he wasn't a Turian. You know what I mean? And I don't need to know how the mass relays work. I don't need to know who made them exactly, even though we do eventually find it out. That's part of the mystery. I don't need to know how they did it. I don't need to know why the Reapers are doing what they're doing, but I do find it out, and that's great and wonderful to find out, but I don't need to know exactly to the minutia of what's going on with it. And the third one is the Stormlight Archive. And I think in my brain, it's kind of the opposite of the first two. Everything is very purposeful and placed and told to you for a reason in the Stormlight Archive. With that in mind, most of it, world building in general, resonates with me because of how much sense it makes in the long term. And I have two examples of that, one in Stormlight Archive and one in Horizon Zero Dawn. I loved the world of Horizon Zero Dawn. It's like a post-apocalyptic robot dinosaur thing. And it's mainly because of a level of how much I'm willing to buy it after it's been explained to me. And I buy it hard in Stormlight Archive and in Horizon Zero Dawn. In Horizon Zero Dawn, the idea, like, you go into it thinking, why are these robots dinosaurs? That's dumb. You know? What happened that the world is able to make these advanced robot dinosaurs, and now I'm living 3,000 years in the future in destroyed Colorado or wherever the fuck, and technology is where it is now, but these robot dinosaurs exist. I buy it. I'm not gonna... who gives a shit? It's an old game. So, what happened is humanity Grey Goo'd themselves. They made the Grey Goo, and the Grey Goo was taking them all out, little by little. So, the last bastion of humanity was like, the only way that humans will survive this is by killing ourselves. And just letting the people who are left over come later. So they basically made a nursery that will make humans later. But the world was fucked. This was a thousands of years project that they had to do. So they created a system of AI that would remake the world over the course of thousands of years. And the main antagonist in the game is one of the AI's job was to destroy the world. And now you're thinking, why would they make an AI that destroys the world? This is one of the things that makes so much sense to me. They would have to make that AI to destroy the world just in case the other ones fucked it. If they messed it up, they'd have to start again. So they had to make one that could just reset the whole thing and try again with more, embryonic humans. And I love that. I love how much sense it makes and how much I buy it at the end. And, I love that the whole reason it's happening is like a glitch in the system because, the people who were in charge of creating these AI and telling them what to do were like artists. They were the artisans of this new apocalypse that they were creating. And I love that. on the flip side, with Stormlight Archive, something that really makes sense to me, in the world of the Stormlight Archive, there are these things called high storms. It's basically like a really, really, really bad hurricane that is constantly cycling across the entire world. And it comes from the origin to the east and goes west and then comes back from the origin renewed, right? So the world is just built to survive that because it's happened for millennia. The people who are alive now, the animals, the plants who are alive now, have survived that. So people build their houses pointing down toward the origin, so the wind and debris flows over and up the house, rather than blowing it down. Or they build their cities in calderas, or like wind crevasses, or whatever the fuck, to protect from the winds. Or the plants near the eastern side, near the origin of the continent, like, they're like rock buds, and they're just like little rocks that retreat into their bud when the storm comes, but when water comes after the storm has showed up, the vines come out to collect water. I love that shit. And I think the reason it resonated so well with me is because without my really knowledge or consent, Brandon Sanderson, without my consent, it just sunk into me and I got it. I understood it integrally, and I didn't need him to hold my hand when a certain scene happens, and I'm going to say that scene right now. This isn't a spoiler, so don't worry. I highly recommend the books so much. There's a character, he's flying, and we hear that he's on the eastern side of the continent, and we hear that he flies north. And he goes up north, and he describes seeing a tower. And the first thing he notices about the tower is that all of the windows of the tower are facing toward the east. And the character doesn't acknowledge that. Like, it's not abnormal to him. But I read that and I'm like, wait a second. What about the high storms? How would this tower even be alive right now if it were for the high storms? It would have been blown down, surely. And I just see that. The book didn't tell me to feel that way, but because of the world building preceding this, I just knew this was wrong. But then later, of course, we find out he didn't see, the character at the time didn't see fit to elucidate this to the reader. The tower is built above the cloud line. The high storms happen underneath the tower. It's at the top of a mountain. And I just love that because of that one moment, I was like, oh, of course. I get it. And I buy it. I understand now. Like, he presented with me one little tidbit of information that completely conflicted with what I had known before. And it wasn't until that moment occurred that I'm like, oh, I know things about this world. I understand it.
That's also like, that's like rewarding as well. Because like, you almost feel satisfied that like, you picked up that something was wrong there. And then it later on explained why. Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Another
I like that.
great example is Attack on Titan.
I'm looking at what you've just described, and I'm like, you want your world building to be like a jigsaw puzzle.
Everything to fit together.
And one that specifically has edges.
Yeah.
Where like there is a defined picture that you should be looking at. And the more information you get, the more easy it is to see that whole picture. And every piece that you add, it gets easier to fill in that where it should go, because you know what you have and where it should be.
But it's a slippery slope.
That's also a good description.
It's a slippery slope
for Attack on Titan.
Because if, like, Attack on Titan is probably the best example of the metaphor that you're bringing up, Kyle, where every single goddamn bit of information at the end of the series makes a beautiful fucking tapestry of a jigsaw puzzle. Everything fits together. It's exactly where it is and where it should be, and it's a beautiful image at the end. The problem is, the more pieces you add, I'm not going to say it's the harder the puzzle is to put together, just the shittier the image at the end. If you,
okay.
like with Warhammer, from my perspective, there's so many goddamn little bits of information that I don't give a shit about. Like, the caliber of shotgun that the Space Marines use does not affect how I feel about the Tyranids.
The problem with Warhammer in that analogy is that this is a jigsaw puzzle with no edges.
Right.
And you can just add stuff infinitely to it, and that's the problem.
Well, I think that's where we can back up, and like the story is what holds it to a certain area.
Oh. It is, the story
Right.
is the edge.
Right.
Yeah. Like, we take Attack on Titan. We know that there's an outer world, but if it does not directly relate to the Titans, to Eren, to like any of them, like, then we don't know, like, it stops there.
Right. That's a
Like, I'm
defined
not going to spoil
edge.
the very end since it's only been like two or 3 weeks, but like that's what the story is there for, to have that stopping point.
Right.
Like, I couldn't,
That's why.
the Stormlight Archives, like, it probably also has that defined. It's to find the whole world, probably.
There was
at least it seems like
I've only read the first 3 books. There's one more to read, and then another one. I think there's another 2 coming out eventually, but one's about to come out soon. Regardless, I'm not going to spoil anything, so don't worry. At the very beginning of the first book, they give you a scene, and you don't know what in the fuck is happening in this scene. The scene starts and ends, and then the book just keeps going. And it wasn't until I got to the 3rd book that finally I'm like, oh shit, I get it. And it was like there was a whole gap in the puzzle that he just hammered in, and it all fit together. And I was like, oh my god, I get it. And it was similar. I'll say Attack on Titan did it more grandiosely and better. It was a similar feeling to Attack on Titan, where eventually a certain thing happens in Attack on Titan. Again, I won't spoil it just in case. And it's like, oh my god, I should have trusted the author from the beginning.
Yeah, I think the storytelling is what really pulls me to keep me going there. Because, like, again, Attack on Titan, when maybe that's also why I'm still compelled with Cody's World, is because it's like the breadcrumbs are mostly still there from like the very beginning.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, there was always things that make sense that we could like go back to. But just the name of the first episode
To you, like
was
1,000 years ago.
a message to you 2,000 years in the future. Yeah. Like, that could have easily just been played off like, hey, let's just make a really spontaneous name for this episode, and we'll come back to it later. Like, it's easy enough to write off that could have happened. But then, like, you look at all the different details that, like, later on are the revelations that make sense. Like, Eren had just, like, waking up from that dream and then, like, a tear coming down. He doesn't know why he's crying. He doesn't remember his dream. But that dream was, like, everything that he has to go
and
through.
it comes across as, like, for me at least, the first time I watched it, it comes across as, oh, look at this, like, oh, I'm supposed to feel something about this little kid I know nothing about. Oh, he's sad about something. I don't know what the hell's going on. Did he, like, lose his parents? No, his parents are there. I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't care. Because it's a payoff. Yeah. Goddamn 70 episodes in the making.
The very ending now makes so much more sense.
I feel real left out because I haven't watched
How
all
about
of
you
Attack
get
on
shit on,
Titan.
Kyle?
Oh, Kyle, you need to watch it, dude.
I've seen, like, I saw, like, the first 20 episodes
You
or
don't
something
know
like that.
shit,
Oh.
Kyle. Okay?
I'm aware. I'm sitting here going,
I've
I
told
have
this story
no
100
clue
times
what
when
you
I
guys are
was
on
young.
about.
I watched the first season. I'm like, I don't get it. See, everybody loved it. On Reddit and everything, people were going nuts. And I'm like, I don't really see the big deal. And then the second season came out. Everybody on Reddit was going nuts, right? So I'm like, okay, I'll give it another shot. And it had been like more than a year since I watched the first season. So I watched it again. I'm like, okay, all right. I watched the second season. I'm like, okay, that was fun. Good animation, I guess. I don't really see the big deal, guys. Why is everybody going crazy about this? Third season comes out. Everybody goes crazy. And only the first half of the third season came out. Everybody goes crazy. I'm like, fine. I didn't rewatch. I just watched the first half of the third season. And I'm like, this was arguably one of the worst seasons of anime I've ever fucking seen. It was dog shit. I think Attack on Titan is just bad, guys. The first episode of Season 3 Part 2 comes out. And everybody's losing their minds. I'm like, no, I'm not falling into the trap again. I'm not doing it. The last episode comes out, like 10 weeks later. And people, like, if I thought they were losing their minds before, people were saying such inflammatory shit that it convinced me, okay, Reddit, you win, alright? I'll watch it all again, okay? So I watched from the season 1 again, and then I watched season 3 part 2, and I watched all of it, and I'm like, alright, it's incredible, okay, I get it. It was incredible from the entire start. I understand now, okay? I'm sorry.
I think that was the first real payout that happened, because the end of that was when they made it to his house, and they finally got to see everything in the basement. And it zoomed you out of the fucking, the 40 times zoom that you were looking at for that island. And you were like, oh my god, there's a whole ass world out there. And it's just like,
the big thing about it, it's similar to the Stormlight Archive thing. The big thing about it for me, especially with Attack on Titan, is I buy it. Suddenly, all of these questions that I was confident that there is no way the author has an answer for me that would be even remotely satisfactory. Every single little thing was answered, and I was like, okay, well, damn, I'm wrong. Holy shit, that's incredible.
And like, then it's interesting too, because like once you get that answer, you can go back and you can see that like
so many things to go back
Reiner and
I guess I should probably go watch this.
And then like the Beast Titan, his throwing form, and then you learn that like he did baseball and all this stuff, and it's like, oh my god,
the story that Bertolt tells, Bertolt and Reiner tell like the cast.
Oh. Yeah, like Ymir and
we learn that that's just a story that was told to them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so lost.
Kyle, you gotta go finish. Like, if you started it and you were kind of enjoying it, like, first of all, there's times where the anime, like, they keep it really calmed down at sometimes, but then there's times where the animations just like kick off. So if you're there to see like awesome scenes, you're going to get about 10 of them from Levi.
Especially in season 3 part 2. Like, something happened. In season 3 part 1, maybe that's what it was. They just front-loaded all of their budget to season 3 part 2. Something like that.
I think probably. I think they were like, hey, this is like, we want to get this out of the way and done. And then like, we'll give you like the fucking jaw-dropping awesome shit that
I'm not
happens.
being hyperbolic when I say in the first 5 minutes of the first episode of season 3 part 2, I was just like, oh, this show's like good. Something's different. Something just feels different. This is a well-made show.
Okay. Remember when Armin was...
I do remember that, John. I'm glad you brought it up.
That was so
That brings me to my next point about Attack on Titan.
Oh, good.
Actually, no, it doesn't. I didn't want to talk about it today, but here we are. But it's great. I could not genuinely recommend it more. I love it so much, and I think everyone who likes themselves even a little bit should experience it because it is actually that good. I really do think it's one of the best things ever made.
So, like, the things that I hear you and Cody talk about Stormlight Archives, and I hold that to a really high level degree of logical storytelling is what I'm going to call it. Like, Cody will not stop gagging on the Stormlight Archives dick. He is all about it. It is constantly just filling up his throat. And, okay, it hasn't really talked about that much recently, but...
He was storing up a lot because he didn't have anyone to talk about it with until I read it.
Yeah. But, like, he praises it and absolutely loves it. Like, we learned from the podcast episode from a year ago, the Christmas thing where we asked him all the wedding questions. Like, that was his favorite thing to read, was the Stormlight Archives. And, like, even though I'm only a few chapters in, I can just tell, like, the story is, like, it is capturing. Like, I'm finding myself wanting to take the time to read it more, but I'm just, like, struggling to find the time that I want to sacrifice to do it. But I never do that for books. Like, I read through 4 Harry Potter books. I'm like, I fucking hate this. I'd rather fucking die. Like,
Okay.
I get halfway through the Goblet of Fire. I'm like, oh my god, dude.
Yeah, I get it.
This is a
Cedric's
slog
dead.
for me.
Jesus Christ.
But like, I would almost say that like from a logistical storytelling point, Attack on Titan is the same thing in an animation. Yeah. Like, there's answers to everything.
I just buy it.
Every single detail that matters. Sorry. Every single detail that matters. You're not going to get there. You're not going to sit there and get all the backstory for every single character. And I'm sure there's some... You're going to get enough.
In, like, the manga, there's some, like, explanation for why the maneuver gear works or whatever the shit. I don't care.
They explained it in the anime.
I mean, they kind of did in those, like, those
little break scenes.
Where you're not even encouraged a little bit. You're not encouraged to pause and read that.
Not really,
because you don't gain.
I know how the maneuver gear works. What the hell?
Well, Kyle, it's not really relevant to the story, so good for you.
It's kind of shit I care about.
The one thing that I can remember from those what do you like ad break things, whatever they would be,
commercial breaks,
the commercial break things that
the singers,
whatever. The breaks in the episode that you can pause and read that is even a little bit important is there's a story of a guy inside the walls talking about wanting to get outside the walls, and so he digs down to get out the walls, and he spends literally his entire life digging down to get outside the wall and go underneath it until eventually he hits the bottom and it's more wall, like on his feet. And then it's through that we learn they are in a big bowl. And you're immediately like, what in the hell? Like at the time, now I know. But you're like, what? What? Who made this bowl? How could they have?
That doesn't make any sense to me. Hold on a second.
Okay,
I don't want to spoil it for Kyle.
No,
but
here's what we need to do. We need to set out sometime next year. We just set out an entire week or something, and just all of us binge the entirety of Attack on Titan.
I would love to do that. You want to do it together?
Fucking 7th time I've done it.
It'll be my second and a half. Nope, it'll be my.
What? I've seen I don't know 20 episodes. So yeah, I think we should plan that.
I am so down.
I will find a way to make that work.
Regardless,
So I feel like logical storytelling is where you stop. Well, that's
my cream, but also genuinely, with something I keep talking about Lost in these episodes. With something like Lost, the thing that really grabs me is specifically not the world building, it's the characters. The world building is kind of meh, but I really love the world of Lost because it's the world that these characters live in. And okay. I don't know where that fits in with the metaphor of the jigsaw puzzle, but when the characters are so genuinely interesting to me, I don't need the world to be some. It's kind of with Star Wars as well. It's a combo of the characters just being really interesting and grabbing, and me wanting to know more about them, and everything just looking cool. I just like how cool everything looks in the original Star Wars.
It's an interesting, different parts of the spectrum on there.
No man is an island unless it's lost. Then you are an island. In fact, we're all the island or some shit. I don't know.
All right.
Here we are.
All right.
An hour and 5 minutes ish into the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to keep talking about this? I feel like I could keep talking about it, guys.
I could certainly bring some more things together, because I had, when I was describing the jigsaw puzzle thing, I kind of understood where 40K sits on that, and I felt like I could explain it to you guys in a way that would actually make you enjoy it in some ways.
Chris, you haven't said anything in a while.
40K is like a 1,000,000-piece puzzle that's too big to fit in my living room.
Right. The thing that everyone, you gotta go into 40K with the understanding of is that it is a setting that you are there to tell a story
Right.
in.
I think that's part of my
and you
my
only
issue.
use the pieces that are there to fill your story.
Like I haven't seen like what's that game? Rogue Trader. Rogue Trader probably has
Right.
a very solid setting, and it is a complete jigsaw puzzle. I'm willing to bet that it is a complete picture that I could immerse myself in, but I haven't seen
Mhm.
anything from it. I haven't played it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Are there video
Yeah, that's Rogue
games
Trader.
that you guys?
Oh yeah, there's a
Well,
lot.
no, I'm saying are there video games
Oh.
that you guys like thoroughly enjoy, like the story of the world building? Of?
Yeah.
Now, is it just
I know you
within the
said-
game, or
Scott
do you
said
want
Horizon
like
Zero Dawn.
all the extra stuff that can go
Well,
around
like-
a game?
What do you mean, Kyle?
So, like, Halo, for just the games, is kind of meh in its world building, but they did do a lot of supplementary fiction that went along with it that really expands the world building that I really enjoy. But, like you've said, it can be as surface level as I'm a dude in armor fighting aliens.
Mm-hmm.
And that's almost what all the games are. That goes that deep.
I specifically loved the character building of Master Chief.
Mr. Chef.
That was
And then I grew so after I actually sat down and played Halo 3, I was like, man, I want more Chief. And then I took the time to play Halo 1, and I never got to fully play Halo 2, but I got to see enough of it to know what happens.
right.
And
Now, did you
honestly,
play 4, 5, and Infinite?
I played 4 and I started to play 5 at your house once.
Okay.
And I never finished it. But I'm gonna stop at 3 because that is, well, hear me out. That is 2 different companies trying to do the world building.
Was Reach made by
So you see,
Bungie?
Reach is where I'm legitimately gonna stop because that was the last game that they made, that 343, or sorry, that Bungie made, and then it went to 343. But like Bungie wanted to flesh out a little bit of the world, but they only wanted to flesh out a certain area of it. Of the universe.
I'm gonna blow your fucking mind. Bungie has been building on one universe since the 80s, and Halo was a very small part of it.
What, were we talking about like Marathon or something?
Marathon is part of it. Myth was part of it. Descent into Dark, or like Descent into Shadows or something. It's was part of it. Their world building is mind-bogglingly huge, and it is.
This is all part of one universe.
Kinda, sorta, yeah. Like all of them are interconnected and related.
I can come up with an example
Really?
of a video game universe that might trigger Chris that I think specifically does it poorly.
Okay.
Journey.
No, there isn't really any world to build in Journey. Because it's about the journey, not the destination, John. Pokemon.
It's about the friends you make
Pokemon
along
is
the
the perfect example of a world that I don't buy. I just don't buy it.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
only is it like weird that 10-year-olds are going on adventures, I don't buy that the world is the way it is with Pokemon in it. And they try to explain it in these like past games with the what's that one that's like the time machine and you go back into time, and it's just recently it came out. Is
Arceus
Legends
or something
Arceus,
like that?
yeah. You go back in
Yeah,
time and it's
yeah.
like telling the story of when Pokemon first started getting tamed or whatever. I don't buy it. I just don't. There's a literal Pokemon god, but you can catch him. I don't buy it. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So that's what goes into high fantasy
Yeah.
for me. And high fantasy for me, and Kyle, this is Scott and I were talking a while back. This is what I think you should just set your world as.
Mm-hmm.
But like high fantasy should just be like, dude, screw the rules. We can
Yeah.
just have fun.
Right.
Because that's what Pokemon was supposed to be at first. But then, like, I don't know why they wanted to go the direction of trying to make things make sense.
Someone fucking questioned why all these 10-year-olds were going around starting what is essentially organized dogfighting rings.
No, I think
Someone-
legitimately it was...
That's what Pokemon is to me.
Yeah, you're right. But I think, like, there was one episode where you see a Pokemon doing something that's logical, like an electric Pokemon is doing something to give energy to an entire city or something. And it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And then, like, they saw that it was like, hey, the crowd reacted to this really well. Let's try to make this make sense. You know, like, let's see what else we can do with this. But here's the thing. Entei is born every time a fucking volcano erupts or something. And Machamp can punch with the force of, like, 4,000 fucking pounds of pressure. Or I don't know. Like, he can cause an earthquake with his fist. Like, it's like, it goes from like, okay, Charmander can start a campfire, but Charizard
ignites the sun every day.
Breathes a little heavily. If he just exhales, the sun comes up. Like,
no, he's just bullshitting. But like, I did watch some video a long time ago of a guy kind of roasting this idea. He like went through all of the Pokedex entries, and just to see, I think it was you wouldn't survive, something like that. You wouldn't survive in the Pokemon universe. And he went through all the Pokedex entries, and at the end, the main takeaway he had was, I don't know why there are mountains ever in Pokemon universe, because there's like 24 different Pokemon that specifically destroy mountains or eat mountains.
So, aren't there Pokemon that make mountains?
You know what? No.
Yes.
I'm saying no.
So,
okay.
The Pokedex is a collection of myths.
I mean, that's specifically not what it's supposed to be, though. They're supposed to tell me what the fucking Pokemon is.
Yeah, I can't. I'm with Scott. I can't buy Pokemon world building at all.
Like, here's one. Okay, I just looked up bizarre Pokemon indexes, and the first one that I found is Beware.
What?
Like the black and pink bear thing.
Yep. Beware.
This Pokemon has a habit of hugging its companions. Many trainers have left this world after their spines were squashed by its hug.
Oh my god! Can you imagine? Like, you love this creature. You've been loving this creature, raising it up to be the Pokemon it is today, and it snaps you in half because it loves you so much. Oh my god! That's incredible.
Some of these are so absurd, man.
I know.
Yeah, my pet Beware went and gave my friend a hug. She's
No,
dead
it's
now.
like, oh, you gotta shoot him. You gotta shoot. Oh, we gave the Beware a bunch of X-Lax and a T. Oh god. Oh, he's stabbing my friend and he's tearing her face off. That was my impression of that woman in the chimpanzee call. Anybody? You know? But Beware. Isn't that great? Also, about Pokemon, this is kind of what I was getting at with that one episode in the podcast where I said, I want to see the Pokemon War. I want to see how they used Pokemon in a war. I want to see...
Oh, yeah, like Lieutenant Surge and all that shit.
He specifically said, my Raichu saved me in the war, or whatever. I want to see that happen.
Oh, that's fucking terrifying.
I want to see what it means.
Oh, I am not okay with how interested I am in just seeing the fucking super dark, gritty version of Pokemon.
Sorry, here's another one. The Pokedex for Araquanid. It delivers headbutts with the water bubble on its head. The small Pokemon get sucked inside the bubble where they drown.
What?
Oh my god.
I don't even know what this Pokemon is.
It's a giant water spider.
Okay.
It looks like it's in like the later generations because it's like really cartoonish.
It's from Alola.
No idea.
Great.
Gen 7.
I don't know anything past 3. Except for like the big ones that I'm supposed to know.
I barely get past 2.
Basculegion clads itself in the souls of comrades that perished before fulfilling their goals of journeying upstream. Okay. No other species throughout all of whatever this is, river, is Basculegion's equal.
Hold on.
What?
So now in that one Pokedex, souls are real? What are we talking about?
Yeah.
Well, that's what ghost Pokemon.
No, what are we talking about? They're
God.
Pokemon. No. Okay? I don't like this. I don't like that the implication of a ghost Pokemon existing means that it's a literal spirit from the dead. Because what about the ghost Marowak? It didn't turn into a Ghastly. It was a ghost Marowak.
There are.
Yeah, okay.
what's
I
the
think
one?
that's enough Pokemon.
No, I got another good one.
Okay.
There's a tree stump ghost Pokemon that is supposed to be a tree stump that is possessed by the spirit of children that have died wandering.
What are we
in the
talking about?
woods.
What
Let's
are we talking
not.
about? Why?
Fucking let's not.
How does this improve
What's the-
Pokemon?
Yeah, John, what's this other
John-
absurd Pokemon
John,
you want to throw us?
Give me one more, and we'll get out of here.
This one's just kind of a really funny one to me. It's Drifloon.
Oh,
Oh, yep.
I know that one. I do know.
Stories go that it grabs the hands of small children and drags them away to the afterlife. It dislikes heavy children.
What are we talking about? What do you mean?
It's a
So now
balloon.
we're fat shaming.
It's a balloon. It can't lift fat children.
No,
But
what?
is
Why?
it, though?
Why is it killing
Is
these
it
kids?
because that means it's not killing the fat children?
Why is it killing these kids? What? Why? Does it eat them?
It's not.
Oh god.
Hmm.
Pokemon is an absurdist
Oh my
nightmare.
god!
Yes.
Why? Who?
Anyway.
Jesus. Who thought that was okay?
I think this world is thoroughly
Yeah.
built.
Welcome to the world of In the Buff. I'm your host, Chris. Goodbye, everybody.
We'll see you guys next week. Have a wonderful time.
Okay. Good night.
Drillmon, the drill of knowledge.